Hello Curious and welcome back. Today's video will be about the women of Afghanistan whose future and rights are uncertain. This is an issue that had many talking around the world, especially in light of the countless protests for women's rights that have been taking place around the world in recent years, even during the Olympic Games. Recently, the Taliban have taken over Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, where according to media reports things are worse than bad. The brutal terror affects the majority of citizens, especially women who are the most vulnerable. What rights did the women have before the arrival of the Taliban? Why is it that in previous decades they lived with more freedom and now some want them suppressed from their society? Which Afghan celebrities have fled and which did not have the opportunity and have lost their lives during their attempts? And which celebrities have spoken out in support of the women of the country? Stay with us until the very end to find out all about the frightening reality for those that live in Afghanistan. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel where we publish videos with interesting information. For those of you who might not have been keeping up with the news, we'll get you up to speed with what has been happening in recent days. There had already been reports of people in places of power and authority publicly having their lives taken, and with each day the future of Afghan women and children is even more uncertain, with many claiming that the extremist soldiers had been kidnapping young girls and women so that they can marry the soldiers. In a press conference, Zabihullah Mujahid, the armed group's spokesman, had said that the rights of women will be protected within the framework of Islam, as well as promising media freedom, amnesty for government officials, allegedly including those that have collaborated with the US government, and even had urged women to join their government. In a response to a question about the differences between the 1990s Taliban and today's, Mujahid had said that the ideology and beliefs are the same because they are Muslim, but that there are changes in the terms of experience and have different perspectives. However, the reality is that various media reports show us that the women and children still continue to be the most vulnerable under the new regime, where the radical groups, as we had mentioned before, had taken on the task of hunting down girls as young as 12 and women under 45 who are either single or widowed, with the purpose of forcing them into a marriage or so that they could have intimate relations with the soldiers. And this is where we come to see the difference between how the women had lived and were treated in Afghanistan before the arrival of the Taliban. In the 70s, in Kabul, people had an almost normal life and women had a much greater freedom than today. They could go out to study, wear heels, walk alone in the streets. During the reign of King Amanullah, between the 1919 until his abdication in 1929, he had fought for the freedom of women in the public sphere to diminish the control that men and their families had over them. Women's education was more commonly accepted, and in 1921 the law of forced as well as child marriages were completely abolished and restrictions on polygamy were imposed. Queen Saroya, the wife of Amanullah, was being hailed as being one of the first activists in her country, improving the policies to help the women in their country to have better lives. Though as recent action seemed to suggest, not everyone in Afghan society was ready for gender equality. After the monarchy in the country was overthrown, Mohammad Dawud Khan was elected as president of the country, and under his rule, women began to gain more rights and consequently had a more public presence. One of his main objectives was to try and get rid of the Islamic extremism of treating women like animals and the thought that their lives were worthless compared to that of men. With these changes, women began to become relevant, obtained better jobs, and began to enjoy certain rights that were previously denied to them. However, with the latest takeover by the Taliban, it seems that those things are once again coming to an end, and possibly the rules that the women had to live under previously when the Taliban first seized control coming back. Right now, it is unclear if these rules or others will be enforced, but those that were in place previously, as per a 2001 report by the US State Department, they were not able to perform activities outside of the home without the company of a man related to them, had to wear coverings from head to toe. They were not allowed to work except in very limited circumstances. They were barred from attending schools. Women's health care was restricted. Women could only use special buses and were only allowed to take taxis with male relatives, could not be on the street with men who were not related to them, and the windows of houses had to be painted over to stop outsiders from seeing women in their homes. Though the women keep fighting for their rights, as prior to the Taliban taking over the capital at the start of July, armed women took to the streets of the country in protest against the extremist group and their then planned takeover of power. They had done so as a reminder of how frightened many women are about what Taliban rule could mean for them and their families. And this symbolic protest was also a way to help inspire the security forces. Thanks to social media and YouTubers, as well as influencers in the country who had been posting about the situation in Afghanistan, which also risked putting their lives at risk, we're able to see the harsh reality of what the people were going through. As we mentioned at the beginning, there are many of those that are stuck in their country and others who went to desperate measures to escape, such as hold on to planes that were taking off and had lost their lives while fleeing to save it. But if we look at those who had stayed in the capital, they had been desperate to erase absolutely all of their content and their profiles and all the traces that might exist about them online in general, because they know that if it would put them in the sight of the extremist group and if the Taliban managed to discover it, they would pay with their lives. The situation is so critical that even social network platforms like Facebook are implementing tools to help Afghans. For example, the site created by Mark Zuckerberg had said that it had created a one-click tool that allowed people to quickly lock their accounts, which would prevent people which aren't already their friends from downloading their profile pictures or seeing their posts. Sadiqa Madadgar, a young Afghan influencer who touched thousands with her incredible voice when she appeared on the contest called Afghan Star, took to her Instagram to express her feelings about what is happening in her country and how the Taliban destroyed everything that their society had worked for. But once the extremist group took over the capital, her social media had gone quiet, and as of the time the video was made, the situation of the influencer is unknown. Aida Sadaf, a fashion influencer and designer, as well as owner of her own fashion company which is quite renowned in Kabul, although she was a practicing Muslim, she was not in favour of covering her body and face and so went on about her life without doing so, though she knew perfectly well that her lifestyle and occupation would simply mean the end of her life under Taliban rule. So without further ado, she fled the country and together with her boyfriend is now allegedly settled in Turkey. Ariana Syed is a very famous pop star from her country, and she had uploaded to her Instagram stories posting documents about escape from the country aboard one of the US planes, and upon landing in the United States she spoke with Access to Hollywood about everything that she had gone through. Though at the start of the video we said that there had been those who did not have the possibility to flee or in a desperate attempt had lost their lives. Such was the case of a young soccer player from the Afghan national team, Zaki Anwari, who fell from the wing of an airplane once it had taken off. Many international stars had voiced their support for the women and children in Afghanistan, such as Angelina Jolie, who had joined Instagram so that she could share a letter from a young girl in the country about what is happening, which she said she did as given that the people there can't share their stories themselves, she will do so herself on the platform. Friends star Jennifer Aniston also took to her social media to voice her concerns by sharing a post by Malala Yousafzai with the comment, "This is a devastating step backward for women and girls in Afghanistan. Let's get these women and their families out ASAP." Other stars that had voiced their support have been Game of Thrones star Lena Headey, actress Gemma Chan, and Meghan Markle, as well as her husband Prince Harry. Where this topic is concerned, it produces a feeling of agitation and a worry for the future of women's rights in the country, as well as for the future of Afghanistan in general. And so curious, what are your thoughts on the situation in the country? What else do you think that we can do to help? And do you think that the situation there will ever go back to how it used to be before? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to share the video and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.